make sure that everyone has the Everyone button selected on the chat room. So on your right-hand side, you should see the two options to either all panelists or to everyone. Make sure that everyone has everyone selected so we are able to see everyone's responses.
I saw that we had a question about assignments for course credit. So if you are interested in taking this class for credit, then you will sign up through the AEA in the area in which you took the course. So that's very important. That may be different than the AEA that you normally use. And so if that is something that you have chosen to do, there are assignments that go along with that. Those assignments are not due until January. That once we complete all 4 sets of our webinars, then the assignments will be due. And if you have questions on those assignments or you need to know what those assignments are, you can let me know. I have an email that I can send you that has all the information about that. But it involves reading an article that there's a link to, reading part of your Invent to Learn book that came with your kit, as well as planning out some activities and some lesson plans that you would actually be using these materials for in your learning environment or classroom. Okay, so we're gonna kind of start on our theme here, which is safety. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to keep sending those in, and we'll address those as we can. Something that I wanted to give you a little bit of clarity on are the lesson prompts. We talked about the lesson prompts in the PD sessions, and that's what's in your framework, but we wanted to just review what they look like and how they are used, and then Patrick is going to talk about this lesson prompt in particular, which is the one that is on safety. So each of the lesson prompts has a title to it, and then it has a description, I think you can see my arrow here, of what the lesson is about. And then underneath that, you will see instructional objectives, guiding questions, and a literacy connection. So all of the lesson plans start that same way. And you will see also off to the right side, you'll see a sample version of the standards. We have a document that breaks down every single lesson and talks about all of the standards that are addressed, but this box just kind of gives you an overview of the standards that this lesson will address. Then below that standards box, you see a vocabulary box, and the vocabulary throughout the lesson will be highlighted in that blue color. And so we recommend that you view that and maybe decide, depending on what age group you're working with, which of those vocabulary words that you might use or in what capacity you might use them. So I'm going to let Patrick talk a little bit about the safety lesson. When we developed these lesson prompts, there was multiple people that together worked on them, and Patrick really focused on this safety lesson. And so he's going to talk to you a little bit about the lesson and how it's designed and what it might look like in your classroom.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So one of the main focuses that we had with the Safety 101 lesson is to really focus on the 3C rule of having caution before you start any activity, making sure that you have clear communication. So identifying what items could be a go item where the student would be able to use them without having to ask for permission, or potentially a red item, which would be something that would have to have adult supervision. And then through the caution and communication, over time, you're going to be eventually building that confidence. And so that's when we talk about the 3C rule. And there is a poster in your lesson framework that you will be receiving that talks about the 3 C's. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. We will look for that and make sure that we have it available for you. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Just something that looks just like that. So when we dive right into the Safety 101 lesson, again, as we mentioned in the PD sessions, we do highlight 3 lesson frameworks that we'd like you to begin with before moving on to the others. It doesn't mean that you have to do these step by step, because that's not what these are designed to be. These are really designed to serve as a starting and entry point for you. If we look at the Safety 101 lesson specifically, you can see that it has the 4 different categories, there's 4 different levels of the novice level, the practitioner level, the apprentice level, and the expert level. It's up to you, again, reiterating that this is really an entry point for you. So there might be some classes in there that it's fully appropriate to start at the novice level for a 3rd grade classroom, whereas other 3rd grade classrooms might choose to start at the practitioner level. That's going to be up to you to decide. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time really diving deep into each different level, but I do want you to be familiar with each of the 4 levels before moving on to each one. They're not necessarily designed to start at the expert and then go back to the practitioner or anything like that. We do want you to go in order if you choose to start at a different level other than the novice. So again, as Jolie had pointed out, just like the vocabulary terms, on the right-hand side, you will see in the blue highlighted column that we have kit materials. And again, kit materials and classroom materials are both listed. Kit materials are items that we felt could enhance this this activity, but it doesn't mean that you have to use those items. These are just items that when we designed the practitioner level, we thought that these items might enhance that activity. If you choose to use other items, that's perfectly fine. We encourage you to do that. Classroom materials, again, are materials that we felt you would have readily accessible to you, potentially already in your classroom, or as we all discovered our new love of fusing plastics, finally able to get plastic bags out of your closet in your kitchen. So those, again, classroom materials could be plastic bags, fabric, glue, paint, crayons, markers, things like that. And then towards the end of the safety lesson, we do have the reflection moments. We really want to focus on these because just like reflection moments for any lesson plan, you want to kind of reiterate why we even were learning about this. So why is safety important when working in the makerspace? What is the process? What are some of the processes that you went through when trying to decide what is on your safety list and what's not? And then bringing in the career component of safety is an integral part of every profession and businesses. What are some safety, where are some areas or careers that safety has been implemented within your community? So it kind of brings back into that community aspect as well as the career connection back to the safety lesson. Do we have any questions on the chat about the safety lesson? All right. Again, as I joked in the PDs, is that, you know, if you don't volunteer early, you might get the honor of designing the safety lesson. So just a rule of thumb is always volunteer early whenever you're in a group setting and handing out different responsibilities. But this activity and this lesson prompt was really the foundation for moving forward. So we do want you to really focus on the safety one and continually come back to it, because again, having that caution and the communication early is going to build that confidence, but you want to make sure that you continually go back to it, because as we use the example of the scissors, we all learn that scissors can be dangerous, but used properly, we eventually build that confidence so we can use scissors without having to ask adult permission. Hopefully, and it's our intent, that it'll be the same mindset for a hot glue gun or an iron or a sewing machine, or potentially the cordless drill, or even the soldering iron.
So I know that not everybody has this framework yet, not the official one. Some of you received it at the training. We just wanted to help you to understand how the framework is designed and know that these are just suggestions of things that you could do. This isn't a requirement to do safety in this manner, but we highly advise that you begin using your tools or the materials in your kit with some type of safety overview, so that the students or the people utilizing the cart materials are aware of the things that they need to be cautious about and how to properly use them, how to properly put them away, and then how to build that confidence over time in utilizing those tools. So this lesson really just wants for you to go through and have discussion with your students or the learners that you're working with about each of the tools and which ones do they think are ones that need more caution or need more supervision, and then that helps them to understand what tools can they use, what tools do they have easy access to, or do they need to ask for adult permission or even supervision in order to use.
And one thing that I would like to highlight again is knowing that the sewing machine might be one of those red items where you do have to have adult supervision starting off. Reach out to your community and find out where there's sewing guilds or potentially any people in your community that might be able to come in and pass those skills that they have on to somebody. I'm guaranteed that you know somebody that sews. And if you need your curtains hemmed, you know who to contact. But make sure that you reach out to your community, because there are people out there that can use a soldering iron very well that could potentially bring in additional soldering irons that frees you up to do other monitoring in the classroom. Same thing with the sewing machine, same thing with a lot of these materials.
Okay. Again, the end of each lesson concludes with some reflection moments, some things that you might use to discuss with your students, thoughts to reflect on, or to even challenge them to the next steps to carry this beyond the lesson itself. And the next thing I want to point out are the safety cards. So the safety cards come with the framework. So if you haven't received the framework yet, which it's being mailed out this week, then you will also receive the safety cards. So we're going to take some time. Patrick and I are going to go through each of these safety cards and talk to you about them. Again, you may not have it now, but you will have it very soon, and talk about what are some of the concerns with each of the tools. And we brought the workbench here so that we can kind of point some of these things out and talk to you about them. So Patrick, why don't you talk about the card itself, and then we can switch the camera and point it over here, and we can talk about some of these examples in the cards.
Great. All right. So again, with the safety component, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted some of the items that were in your cart that could have some caution that needs, some additional caution that needs to be placed around them. So the cards, there's 4 laminated cards held together with one of our beautiful O-rings that we would like to highlight. And they're identified as electronics, hot temperatures, various hand tools, and sharp objects. So that's how we classified the four cards. The first one, as you can see, it starts with electronics. Again, with power strips, just electrical use in general, just to make sure that you are aware of how many power strips you have plugged in. You don't want to be the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with all the lights plugged into the same outlet or anything necessarily. So just make sure that you are aware of how many outlets you are using with your power strip, and then also understand how the power strip works. That could be something just as easy to show and demonstrate of the red light to show where the power strip is turned on and where it's turned off. Oh.
So if you want, you can come over here and you can show
us some of these items. Sorry, she switched it up on me. All right, so of course, this is our power strip. This is the red light that I was referencing earlier, the reset and the off button. So if you plug it in and the red light is on, then you're good to go. Just be cautious of how many times or how many items you do have plugged in the power strip, and we do ask that you please do not have one of the adapters that allows you to plug more things into one power strip, because you might overload the outlet itself. All right, the next one are batteries. So batteries in general, there's lots of batteries that you're receiving, watch batteries, as well as rechargeable batteries. Batteries, we just wanted to highlight saying that make sure you keep those in a climate-controlled environment where there's not extreme heat or extreme cold. Also, we place in there when heated, crushed, or punctured, the chemical paste inside could leak out, causing a mild, severe skin irritation. Please do not just ingest batteries or place the fluids around your eyes. We do that mostly to make sure that we are aware that you should not try to cut a battery open with your handsaw or anything like that. Motors, the DC motors. Do we have any DC motors with us? Mm-hmm. The DC motors are something that is, oh, there we go. These would be something that you could potentially use your circuit blocks for. So again, we have the red and black wires right here. And so that would match up with the red and black wires. This is the buzzer, but if this was the battery pack, then you could have the DC motor attached to here. And the DC motor has a spinning mechanism that is highlighted at the very point of the DC motor. So that's the piece that's going to spin whenever you have the electrical, when you have them hooked up to the circuit. So just be really very aware of this is going to spin at a pretty fast pace to make sure you keep it away from loose objects such as necklaces or hair for obvious reasons. So just make sure that you are aware of the DC motor, and that when you do have it turned on, it's going to go very, very fast, and there is not an on and off switch, so you have to actually break the circuit or get rid of the power source, which would be the batteries. Okay, and then the power drill is the last one on the electronics. And we did go over the power drill at the PD, but we just wanted to highlight it one more time. Again, I'm going to get a little bit closer. All right, so we have the two buttons on the side. So we have the forward. Sorry, I should have got a pedicure or a manicure. So we have the buttons on the side that goes forward. So, well, that's actually reverse. Let me go this way. That would be forward because the arrow is pointing towards the drill, the drill bit. So that would be forward. If I want to go in reverse, I just make sure that I push that button into reverse. If I want to lock it, which is always our suggestion while it's not in use, you just make sure that the switch either forward or back is kind of in between. And if you are wanting to test that out, just squeeze the trigger and it should be in lock position if it's toggled in between. And then if you have it pressed completely in, then it's going to spin. Okay. Just to point out also, we do have the battery power life right here. So if I squeeze it quick, you can tell that I need to charge my drill. Charging station is right down here, and you plug the adapter here right into your wall or into your power strip. So there is no large battery to take off and charge itself. Okay. Things to think about here is obviously the drill itself is going to be spinning. So we have two chucks. We have the one that you can hold on to. Of course, the safety card says don't do this. We did this we demonstrated this in the PD sessions, along with most people in the PD sessions demonstrated this as well. Again, we suggest you hold on to this and spin the top chuck. Okay. As you spin the top chuck, you can see that we have the three chucks coming out. Okay, and if I go in reverse, then those are going to sink back into the drill itself. Okay, that's how we'd like you to first teach the drill instead of using the trigger and holding the bottom chuck and squeezing it. Okay, the reason why is because that could be kind of a shock to a lot of people, and they may drop the drill. It could potentially also pinch their fingers. So we ask you to spin the drill first until you build up that confidence, and it's also just a good idea to teach them that skill anyway. These are lower power drills, so you don't have to crank them and chuck them or anything like that some drills have. But this is going to be fine for most of the activities that you're probably going to be doing, especially when you're drilling into wood or potentially even just cardboard. Did I cover everything with there? And if you are not aware of how powerful these can be, while they're spinning, you want to make sure you keep them away from any loose objects, such again as the hoodie strings or necklaces, or again hair, because there's that YouTube video of the girl that had a corn on the cob attached to a power drill, and she was spinning it as she was eating, and her hair got caught up in it and stuff. So we just want to make sure that you are aware of the safety components of this. And I think that covers everything with the drill. If you do have any questions about the drill itself or about, I strongly suggest practicing. I know that some people were very comfortable with the drill, other people were not comfortable with the drill. So I do suggest you practice with that, inserting the Phillips head as well as the flathead bit several times, taking that in and out, and then also trying it with the drill bit itself, because the drill bits are going to be smaller, and you want to make sure that the drill bit is right in the middle of those three chucks. Okay. All right. If you do have questions on the drill, please just go ahead and enter those into the chat, and then we'll try to answer those as quickly as possible. All right. Do you want me to go on to the next one?
Sure.
Okay. The next one is hot temperature tools. Okay. So we've identified 3 hot temperature tools with the safety card. The first one is, can you guess it? Yeah, the soldering iron. So we have the soldering iron and the stand. Okay. The stand comes with a little sponge. You want to make sure that that has a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be sitting in water, but you want to have a little bit of water. And the stand should look like this whenever it's all put together. I think you actually have to take this piece and screw it into the base, and then this piece comes off also. Okay. So anytime that the soldering iron is not in use, make sure it's unplugged. And if it is plugged in, make sure that it is resting in the soldering iron stand. Okay. The coils are going to heat up because the metal piece of the soldering iron is going to be where the temperature increases. So as that touches the coils, that's going to increase as well. So please make sure you do not touch any of the metal coil part of the stand. You should always grab the soldering iron with the plastic handle in general. Okay. Make sure that all fingers and all skin contact remains away from the metal piece completely, because these get extremely hot. We mentioned how some schools labeled this as a yellow item and the hot glue gun as a red. Well, this gets, I believe, 4 times hotter than the glue gun. So again, this will definitely cause a blister if you do touch it. Use extreme caution whenever you're using this item. Make sure you have safety goggles on because we want to protect our eye source as well. And then anytime that, like I said, that they're not in use, make sure that they are unplugged, or that if they are plugged in, that the power strip is turned off. Okay. It's also great if you're going to be soldering in large quantities that you do that in a well-ventilated room, or next to a fan, or even just next to a window. But we want to make sure that it is completely safe. It is not toxic, but it is just best to have that little bit of airflow just in case. All right, we're going to go to the hot glue gun, everybody's favorite item with your name tents. Again, we saw some really creative name tents as soon as the hot glue gun station got warmed up and was out for everybody. Again, this is a low-powered hot glue gun, so it's not going to be as hot as some of the more traditional ones, and it is also cordless. I just took the cord off and I couldn't think of the word. It's also cordless. So while obviously you do have to have the cord in to have it plugged in to have the heat going to it to heat up the glue, if you do take the cord off, it is going to remain hot for a little while, but eventually it will cool down, and so it's not completely cordless the entire time. But that's a really nice feature about this hot glue gun, as well as it being a low temperature. So again, hot points would be just the metal tip right here. So make sure that you keep your hands and skin free from that area. And then obviously when there is hot glue on a surface, if you touch it, it is going to be a little bit warm, but it will peel off pretty quickly. So it's going to be heat. It's going to be hot, but it's not going to be extreme hot, such as the soldering iron.
You show how it's cordless?
Yep.
Okay, did you already do that? Sorry.
Patrick, can you talk about the red and the green and yellow that we were talking about in the safety lesson again, and maybe just explain that again?
Yeah, definitely. So the first 2 safety lessons, the novice and the practitioner level.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
okay.
you're fine.
The first 2 lessons talk about a safety chart, kind of like a safety stoplight. You can choose to do the safety stoplight on a wall, or you can actually choose to buy red, green, and yellow stickers and actually assign certain items with a sticker. One of the great things about the Maker's Journal is that you can actually journal the safety stoplight into the Maker's Journal that they create. So it could be a list of items, such as underneath the red columns, here's all the items that are listed under red, and so they have that reference at all times. You could do the sticker, like I had mentioned, on the hot glue gun itself. It could be a yellow, it could be a green, it could be a red. It's whatever you choose is best in your situation. Or it could be a poster up on the wall in your classroom that it could list all the items that are red, all the items that are green, all the items that are yellow. Keep on referencing those because, again, that communication is very key in order to have that caution instilled within them, which eventually builds that confidence. So you can choose to do all three if you want. You can choose to do one. It's whatever is best in your situation. The difference between the practitioner, the novice, and the practitioner level is that the novice level starts with general items that everybody's familiar with in your classroom, or we consider would be familiar with. So things such as scissors, plastic rulers potentially, or metal rulers. It could be aluminum foil. It could be that you also get in your kit. It could be some items in the kit, but again, the novice level is really geared towards items that are in your classroom that they are fairly familiar with, and just building that understanding of how to classify items. So scissors could be a red item in some classrooms with that safety stoplight. The practitioner level goes on and starts talking about items that they are a little bit less familiar with. So not everybody has seen a soldering iron. So you still have to first talk about what the soldering iron does, instill that caution, and then assign a level to this. Because again, like I mentioned, there were some schools that labeled this as a yellow purely because they didn't realize how hot it actually got. So that is something to address with your students in the practitioner level, is to address the items that they may not be familiar with. Is that any more clarification, Julie? Or?
No, I think that's good. Some people are asking about a stoplight. If there's a picture or a poster that we can send out, we can provide a picture for that if you're interested in a stoplight picture.
I can draw one for you.
We can upload that on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, that's something that you can get creative with. It doesn't have to be just three big circles. Stoplight has two colors on it. It doesn't have to be just a traditional stoplight if you don't want it to be. You can also get creative yourself. And if you want to create something that has maybe a battery source and some wire and some LEDs, the colored LEDs that you get in your kit, and make a stoplight poster that you can attach onto your board as well, that's something that you can get creative with to kind of start that process along. All right. And again, keep those questions coming. We'll kind of break in between and try to answer as many as we can. All right. So we've gone over on the hot temperature tools. We've gone over the soldering iron, the hot glue gun, and now the iron itself. And again, I joked about when I iron my clothes, everything is set on cotton, and so I really don't know how to use an iron all that well. But I do know that this gets hot. So you do with the iron. Again, it is something that you do need to plug in. We do always suggest that you use your power strips. That way, it's just another source of that you can shut that off. If it's not in use, please unplug it, or make sure the power strip is turned off. All right. We do have. I don't know exactly what you're going to be using the iron for, and you probably may not know yet as well, but again, we used it for fusing plastics. You don't have to fill the water basin with water if you are not going to be using this that water basin for anything. If you are going to be ironing your shirts or something, or fabric with this, you might want to choose to put some water into the basin, which is right here. But I would suggest, if you're not using this for anything that you need that steam, to just don't even worry about it, because that's just one extra place that you don't have to have water. Again, the control panel is right here. I know that there's an instruction booklet that comes in the box with your iron. So if you do want to have the setting at the right setting, you might take a look at that. I know that acrylic and silk is a lower temperature than linen and cotton. That's how much I can tell you, but make sure you are aware that this place gets hot. And then also on your ironing board, that you teach them to make sure that you set the iron up, especially whenever it's hot, instead of just leaving it down the entire time, because we all know what happens and you have to throw away one of your shirts. So, and remember to unplug it immediately as soon as it is finished. You're finished with the item. So that covers the hot temperature tools. Again, we only have those 3 listed. I want to point out too that we've talked about electronics and we've talked about hot temperature tools. The next 2 are various hand tools and sharp objects. Now, both of these are really, really important to understand, that we could have listed everything in the cart itself as a sharp object. So these are not an all-encompassing list, because things such as the metal serrated edge for the aluminum foil could be considered a sharp object, but we did not have that long of a note card to put every sharp object on there. So please just be aware that there are some items that you may want to have additional caution and add to this list that we did not include in there. All right. So we are going to go to sharp objects. All right, the first one are scissors. We want to make sure that we are all aware of that scissors are sharp objects, but we've used them, we put them in the hands of children because we know that they have that confidence already instilled in them. So when carrying scissors, make sure you always walk. Don't run with scissors. And the blades are facing down in a closed position. My mom always taught me to make sure that, I don't know if this is correct or not necessarily, but she always made sure that I carried the scissors when I was holding the closed blade part, because that way she knew that the point was pointed down and that my hand was covering the piece that could puncture, as well as making sure that it's in a closed position. I don't know if that's necessarily what you should do. Yes, okay, the teacher in the room is saying yes. So my mom was right. All right, I'm going to skip over the sewing machine and needles because I'm going to let Jolie talk about that one specifically. The felting kit is the next piece. And do we have the felting needles with us?
Yes, there's some felting needles.
There we go. All right. So you received 2 sets of the felting needles. Again, these are needles, so they are going to have a sharp point to them. And I know that everyone that everyone that attended the PD sessions had an opportunity to use a felting needle and probably have already started felting your own creations. So again, when you're felting, you place your finger on the blunt edge of the needle, and then the point is always going to be pointed down into your styrofoam, or your foam, not styrofoam, into your foam. Okay. Again, we suggest using a cardboard backer or even a board backer. That way you're not damaging tables. Always do it on a hard surface, and never, I don't know if you can see my thigh or not, but never try felting like this without having a hard surface underneath, because we want to make sure that we are not poking each other or ourselves. So again, felting needles, we talked about the consumables versus things that are non-consumable in the kit. Felting needles we consider are non-consumable, but just like drill bits and just like anything, the tips that you may have experienced, the tips will eventually break depending on if you're going at an angle, depending on how long they've been used. They do last quite a while, and I believe we got these at Hobby Lobby. So if you do need new felting needles, that's where we receive them. We're not endorsing Hobby Lobby, but that's where we receive these, so you can pick up additional felting needles elsewhere. Yeah.
There's been lots of questions about breaking needles. And they've also expressed potentially some interest in the pen holders. My only concern with the pen holders would be that you'll really want to consider what the purpose is of the felting that you're doing, because there is some loss of control when you use the pens, less ability to curve the needle, and so really think about that and share with us your feedback about those needles.
All right. Again, one thing that is listed on the safety note cards is just making sure that it does not come in contact with skin. We're talking about the point, that point doesn't come in contact with skin. So were there any other questions about felting? Okay. Again, like we said, things will break eventually. The drill bits, you will, especially the very thin ones, that's okay. Because that's how we learn also about how to use the object correctly. Maybe they were using the drill bit at an angle. Maybe they were felting too fast. Maybe they were pounding too far with it. So things will eventually break. But again, we tried to make sure that we gave you items that were considered non-consumable. Okay. Do you want to go over the sewing machine? Sure. All right. I'm going to get out the.
Okay. Julie, we had somebody suggest using color tape as a guide on the sewing machine.
Oh. So somebody put in a comment about using tape as a guideline for when you are using the sewing machine. Masking tape works really great for that because it will hold, but it also will not leave a lot of residue like Scotch tape or duct tape would. So that's a great suggestion for how to put a straight line basically onto your fabric if that's what it is that you're trying to do with your sewing machine. And then after this, so the students can use that tape as a guide, and then when they're done, they can pull that tape off and maybe even plan out their whole sewing path using that tape so they know if they want to turn or something like that. A couple of things I just want to point out based on some of the comments that people have been making. First of all, on the lesson plans, I just want to point out that at the bottom, we see this attention sign, which is very similar to the sign, the sticker that we're asking you to put onto the cart. Making sure that you understand that these are some suggestions of ways that you might be able to use these materials, but it is per your discretion on how and with whom these materials are used. So if you are working with kindergarten and first grade, and you say, I really do not feel comfortable using these tools, then that is perfectly fine. You do not have to use those tools with those particular students. Or you may change. By the end of the year, you may say, hey, we're ready to try this with some adult supervision, but this is really based on your comfortability, which is why during the PD sessions, we really wanted you to try these things out so that you can develop some of that comfort so that you can then try it with your students. Okay, so at the training sessions, at the PD sessions, we wanted everybody to try using the sewing machine, and hopefully you got a chance to do that, and if not, I hope you were able to try it with the sewing machine once you left the training. A couple of things to think about with the sewing machine. The presser foot that we have, and I'll try to bring this in so that you can see it closely. The presser foot that we have right here, underneath that, there are some little metal teeth there.
Focus, Julie.
Okay. I'm probably too close.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Mm-mm.
Can you move the camera? Does that help a little bit? There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So right here underneath the presser foot are these metal teeth. They're called feed dogs, and that's what draws the fabric through when you are sewing. So when you are about to sew, you lift up the presser foot, then you put the fabric underneath here and put that down, and then when you engage the pedal, those feed dogs will pull the fabric through. You do not need to force the fabric to go through. You don't need to pull it, and you don't need to push it. This is very, very important. Once you push on the pedal, then the feed dogs will move that fabric through. So your hands only need to be placed here on the side, okay? So students only need to have their hands here on the side, and as the fabric goes through, then they can just guide the fabric. There's no reason to have their fingers close to the needle when it's moving up and down. And they certainly do not need to have a hand behind here trying to pull it. One, that can damage the needle, but two, it puts their fingers close to the needle, which really is not necessary. So really the big safety concerns when using the sewing machine is once the fabric is in there and you go to press on the pedal, then your hands are kept at a distance away from the needle and just guide the fabric as it goes through. Okay, so that's probably the largest safety concern. Remember that the needle can be raised up and down using this dial here on the side, as well as the pedal. So if you needed to adjust it, you can do that as well. Okay, the sewing machine does come with extra needles, so that if you need to change that, and there is a great tutorial on the internet, as well as the materials that come with the kit that will help to give you instructions on how to use the sewing machine. But the biggest safety concern is keeping your fingers away from the needle when it is moving up and down. Okay?
Okay. I need to move the sewing machine, I'm sorry. All right, so for sharp objects, we've covered scissors, sewing machine and needles, and the felting kit, so we're done, right? That's all the sharp objects that we give you. Oh, and this one. Yeah, so the box cutter. This is something, or the utility knife. This is something that is going to be found in your tool, your toolbox that you're going to be receiving, if you haven't already received them, that you will be receiving from Home Depot. Okay, so how many toolboxes do you get? 6. So that means you get 6 utility knives, not just one. Okay. Again, we did highlight that this might be an object that you do want to go ahead and remove. That's completely up to you. Some situations it's going to be perfectly acceptable to have a utility knife and box cutter available for student use, potentially under a yellow item or potentially even a red item. Other schools and other situations it might be perfectly acceptable for you to remove that item. If you choose to remove the box cutter or the utility knife from your toolkit, remember that there's 6 of them, first of all. And also remember that right at the very tip of your scissors are the little case that has the extra blades. Okay, if you're going to remove the utility knife, make sure you remove the utility blades, replacement blades as well. Okay, so those are 2 items that are going to be found in each of the toolkits. Again, you get 6 of them. So Christmas, you'll have a lot of them to enjoy. Each toolkit also gets that pair of scissors that I did not highlight earlier. So you will have 6 sets of scissors as well. Other things to think about that could be potentially sharp. I'm not going to highlight every single one, but a tape measure. If you've never used a tape measure before and you let it go, the sides of the tape can potentially cause a scrape or even a small cut. So just be aware of that. We do have everything from the claw end of the hammer. Brand new hammer claws are potentially sharp as well, so just be aware of that. And of course, even just screwdrivers, they have that sharp edge point to them, especially the finer tip ones. So just be aware of it, that there are other items that could be classified as sharp objects that we did not include into the sharp object kit. Okay. Box cutter, we're just going to highlight this real quickly. We are going to have tutorial videos available as well that actually talks about if you've never replaced the blade on a utility knife or box cutter. It talks about how that process works. The same thing with putting the drill bits and the chuck back into the drill as well. We're going to have tutorial videos available for you that kind of highlight those as well. But just to quick highlight the safety components around a utility knife, when you use it, I want to make sure I can get all these. Always cut in a direction away from your body. So always cut away from your body instead of cutting towards it. Okay. Avoid cutting at angles. Turn the object that you're trying to cut instead of turning the utility knife around and cutting at different angles that are a little bit awkward. Immediately close the blade when not in use. So immediately slide that blade back in when you are finished and when it's not in use, and only extend the blade as far as you need it to cut through the object. So you don't need to have the blade out the entire length, just have it out as far as you need in order to cut through the material that you're using. Keep the blade sharp, because a dull blade may pull and it may make it more likely to cause the blade to slip and potentially cut yourself. Okay. Again, make sure you have those replacement blades, so make sure you replace them when they do get dull, and also make sure you always cut away from yourself, away from your body. All right. So that finishes up our sharp objects area, and our last safety card talks about various hand tools. So various hand tools right here. All right, so I'm just going to highlight a few that are on the safety note cards that we have highlighted, or that we chose to highlight. Again, there are other safety or other hand tools that are going to be included in your kit that we did not highlight on these cards. But first of all, the needle nose pliers. Okay, the needle nose pliers have this sharp pointed edge right here, and you should be using caution whenever you have these safety. Whenever you use the needle nose pliers. When they are compressed at the end, at the tip, they are going to squeeze, okay? So make sure you don't have your fingers or any body parts in between the needle tip as you clamp down. And then also you'll notice that there are kind of a cutting edge right there. These can also be used for cutting wire, okay? So make sure that you don't have anything that could be potentially pinched into that sharp area as well. Be sure to make sure you are aware of any pinched fingers. All right, I'm gonna move these real quick. We have our handsaw. All right, your handsaw also comes with the miter box. There is actually a little black peg that seals your handsaw to your miter box. If you choose to do so, that would be a good way to secure your handsaw when it's not in use, is to just have that little black peg stuck right in there. And items to be aware of here is obviously the serrated edge is the cutting edge. That's going to be the sharp edge. Make sure you keep your contact with your skin away from that sharp edge, and use your miter box. Again, we talked about the miter box, how we attach to the top of our cart. That could be appropriate for some age groups. Other age groups, it might be more appropriate to fasten your miter box to a piece of plywood or a small piece of plywood, and then use your C-clamps and clamp your piece of plywood down to a tabletop surface. Therefore, it's a removable surface, and so it's not attached to your cart itself. It's also a lower level for younger students. All right, we have our hammer. It's amazing how many people have not used an actual hammer before in their life. So don't assume that people know how to use all the hand tools just because it might have been common knowledge for us to use them. That may not be the case in today's world with all students. So we have our hammering edge, and then we also have our claw edge. We already talked about our claw edge, that this could be a potential sharp object. This is the edge that you pull out the nails. This is the edge that you actually hammer the nails in. Always be aware of where their grip is, because it doesn't need to be way up here, and it doesn't need to be way at the very end, right in the middle. And also make sure that you're aware of, that they are aware of who's around them whenever they're hammering as well. More than likely, you are going to have a couple of people that hit their fingers for the first time. So just be aware of that, and we do have a first aid kit. So, but that's part of the nature. I remember when we redid our barn, and I was 15. How many times I hit my own finger, and I was 15 at that time. So things like that are going to happen. Just be aware, and also make sure they understand. Well, maybe you need to slow down just a little bit, and eventually they will have that more communication. Eventually, they're going to build a confidence using the hammer. All right, screwdrivers are the next item. I'm going to leave this out actually. So we have lots of different screwdrivers. We have our fine tip screwdrivers that have both flathead and Phillips. Okay, so those are some options for screwdrivers. But if you have a larger object, then I would suggest using this screwdriver and then getting the screwdriver bits out of your kit and inserting one of the attachments into it. So I'm going to take a Phillips head and just slide it right down. You might have heard that little click. I'll do it one more time. Okay, that little click, there's a little magnet inside your adapter, so that bit is going to stay in and held together with that magnet. So that is a nice feature with this drill as well. So you have lots of different connections, or lots of different bits. You can do Phillip, you can do flathead. There's some hex in there also, so so that way you can kind of experiment a little bit with your screwdriver. Some items with the screwdriver to make sure that you always walk whenever you're using a screwdriver. That's one of the things that I did not mention in there. So, all right, we're going to move on to the wire cutters. Now, there's two types of wire cutters that you receive. You have the wire cutters that come in your kit. Sorry. So these are the wire cutters that come in your kit. Okay. So they have that sharp edge right here on the end. So that's one set. We already talked about the needle nose pliers, that they can also be used for a wire cutter right here. And then we also have the 6 green handled wire strippers that are also wire cutters. So this the very midpoint, I guess, is also an area where you can cut wire, okay? So you have 3 different tools that you can use to cut wire, and you're getting 6 sets of each. So you have 18 sources to cut wire. So get going. Woo! Make sure that objects are not placed, especially your hair or fingers, are not in those pinchable areas for the wire cutters. The green handled ones are nice because they do have a little lock right here. So when they're not in use, just slide that up and it's going to hold shut. When they are in use, then slide that little lock down and it's going to be able to be used. Okay. And then the tape measure is the last item that we are highlighting with various hand tools. Again, I already pointed out this could be a sharp object as well. With the tape measure, make sure that if they've never used it, make sure you teach them what this button does, because if it's up, it's going to slide back in. And if it's down, then that's your lock mechanism. Okay. Again, when I was talking about this, the sharp objects, this metal side could potentially cut somebody whenever it goes fast. So, all right. So that is our hand tools section. Are there any questions on the chat about hand tools?
There are not.
All right, great.
Questions have slowed down tremendously.
One thing I wanted to point out as a sharp object, when Patrick was talking about not everything is labeled, you can think about your tape glue gun or your tape gun that we have here, and this has a very, very sharp edge right here in order to cut the tape when you use it. So that's also something to be very careful of. It is designed that you shouldn't have to have contact with that with your hands when you're using it, but definitely be aware of that with students, that they could cut themselves on this edge here if it was used improperly or if it was being carried in an incorrect way. Okay.
Move the camera.
I'm going to go back to this. Okay, we're going to go back to the safety cards. These are the cards that Patrick was going through and referencing. Again, you will be receiving these cards, and they're laminated. You saw that they're on a ring, so you can have those to stay with your card. I highly advise that in case your card might be used by somebody else or either by another educator or some other students, so that they have that there so that they can look at that and be aware of some of the concerns that they have. So again, he went through the electronic components. He went through the various hand tools that you have, the hot temperature tools, and the sharp objects. So again, as soon as you receive your framework, some of you have these, but the rest of you will be receiving them very soon. You'll be able to go through that and review those yourself and with your students as well. Something else that I wanted to point out that is in the framework is a letter to parents. I think it's very important, especially as you go through this process of making, that you have parents or other adults aware of the projects that you're starting and the things that their students might be using while they're with you. So this is a suggested parent letter that we came up with, and we encourage you to use it if it helps you the most, or you could write your own. The book that you got with your kit, the Invent to Learn book, has itself another example of a parent letter in it that you could look at in order to see some different wording or some different ways that you might connect with the parents to help them to understand. I think it's important to have safety be a constant discussion that you have, and it's good to review often with the students about you know, what are the safety concerns, what are the safety features, and as Patrick was alluding to earlier, anytime you can ask for volunteers to come and help or supervise is really a great idea, especially because you might get volunteers that you hadn't normally connected with before. You might have people in your community who are very familiar with hand tools and would love to come and work with your students with those tools, or the sewing machine, or some of the other items that you have in your kit. A couple of resources that I wanted to share with you. One of them is Maker Ed. If you've never been to the Maker Ed website, there's a lot of great resources there. And one of them that I wanted to share with you is the Makerspace book. Oops, go back. All right, I thought it would link to it, but I guess it didn't. The Makerspace book, here, I'll show it to you. Okay, the Makerspace Playbook, if you go to that website, makered.org, they have this Makerspace Playbook, and you can download this PDF for free, and it has a lot of great suggestions on ways to incorporate making into your classroom. And they have a section in here on safety. It starts on page 27, and it highlights the different kinds of tools that you might have in your space and how to use those tools. And they have a great, here it says materials and tools. They have a great tutorial in here on the hot glue gun. And they talk about different ways to use that hot glue gun, things to be aware of. They also have a section in here specifically on shop tools, traditional tools and shop tools. and they give you some information on safe ways to use the tools and to not be completely afraid of incorporating those into your learning space. They give you some suggestions for that. So again, this is through Maker Ed, and the link, I'll go back and show you the link again so that you can.
I've already sent it to the
Oh,
chat.
thank you, Patrick. So like I said, that you'll be able to download that playbook, and it's a great resource for lots of other things as well. Another source of information is in the Event to Learn book that you received in your training. There's many places they talk about safety in this book, but there's some specific points on page 170. They talk about safety and security when utilizing these tools or even having your makerspace open. They have really great suggestions in this book that come from a variety of different sources, whether it be classrooms or museums or just open spaces, libraries that have maker spaces. So use this almost as a textbook and a reference of places to gather some of that information. Before we move on, Patrick, do we have any more questions?
I don't have anything coming through the chat.
Okay, so a few quick things to talk about. Just want to remind you of our next webinar that will be on Tuesday, November 15th. We have moved that because it was originally the week before that on Tuesday, which is the election night. So we decided that we needed to move that because we wanted everybody to be able to participate in the elections. So it's Tuesday, November 15th from 4 to 6:30. And we should have the same technical difficulties that we did this time. But we're going to be looking at designing and setting up a makerspace, and we might look at a lot of varieties of options, from a table to a room to a temporary setup to taking over a hallway, the kind of materials that you might have in your makerspace, the kind of rules that you might have, what are the hours. We're going to look at a lot of different options of that. If you have any great ideas or things that you would like us to demonstrate or show during these webinars, please feel free to email us at any time, and we can set that up and build that into our next webinar. If you'd like to see some specific examples of something being used, or if you're looking for ideas specific to a grade level or to a theme, then please feel free to share those with us, and then we can demonstrate those or have some discussion with that during our next webinar. Before we're done, which looks like we're going to be able to be done a little bit early today, we wanted to have enough time in case people had questions or they wanted to have any discussion. I'm going to have a last chance here to see if anybody has any comments. I saw somebody asked about if it will be recorded. Yes, it will be recorded. All the webinars will be recorded so that you can go back and watch them, and you can see connections to the resources that we've posted during these webinars. Other ideas for maker sources. We have 2 or 3 really great book suggestions that we have found, and I'm happy to share those with you. I'll bring those next time for our webinar. They give you some suggestions and ideas of ways to design your makerspace. Again, everything from something on the very small scale to very large scale, components that you can build yourself to create your own makerspace. One thing I would give you a suggestion is it's really important to have things have easy access and have it well organized and have safety and items posted so that people have that, that freedom to say, I would like to use this tool, but then they need to understand that there may be restrictions or what are the safety concerns, or you need to always have your safety glasses on when you're using this tool, things like that. So I'll bring those next time, those resources on makerspace design that I can share with you.
Amy would like to know where can we rewatch the webinars?
So this is, the webinar is being hosted through Heartland AEA, and when we're done today, they will, they are recording it here, and then they will give me the web address where you can view it again. So as soon as I get that from them, I will pass that on to you so that you can rewatch it or send it on to others that I know were not able to join us today.
And Joan would like to know can you throw the website back up for Maker Ed?
So, for Maker Ed, yes, I'd be happy to, Joan. What's great about when you
Sorry, that was Diane.
okay, when you go to the Maker Ed site, right here, makered.org, they have lots and lots of resources. These are things that people have sent in, examples of things. There are articles you can find. There are suggestions for activities. They're very, very supportive of education in the maker education in the classroom, as well as in libraries and other informal institutions. The Makers Convening that I went to over the summer was put on by Makers Ed, and they collected some data and they've compilated that. You can find that data on their website as well. It's this document right here that are some key findings for how educators view making. So that is a very, very wonderful website. Next time too, I can bring some copies of some other books besides just Makerspace books, but some suggestions of sources that we have found, websites that we have found that are very resourceful and will help you a lot. I know there's been some people asking about the our webpage, and we are having some difficulties with transitioning from our old website at the Science Center to our new website. And so I'm working on that, and I'm hoping to have that resolved as soon as possible. But I can, if there's something in particular that you're looking for as a resource, contact me, and then I can hopefully connect you with that. Let's see, any other questions?
So these are just email updates. So
okay. So there's some questions about the assignments that come for the course. I can email those out to you. Patrick is collecting those emails. I can send those out to you if you haven't received them already. But basically what we're asking you to do is to read the first chapter in Invent to Learn, which has a lot of information on the history of constructivist theory in education and the different people that have contributed to really bringing maker education into the formal classroom. There's also an article to read. There's a website connection, a URL address for that article. And so you'll read those, and then you'll write a reflection about those and what it meant to you and what was some of the information that you received from that. And then the next connection would be for you to write a lesson plan, utilizing the information that you got from these webinars, as well as the training and any of these resources and these books. That's why the assignments are not due until after January, when we have our last webinar. So please don't feel rushed that you have to have those completed now. But if you feel like you're working towards that, or you're already developing a lesson plan or a week's outlook for how you might use these tools, then that can definitely be used for your assignment.
All right, I am trying to write down all the emails that are coming in right now, talking about that they would like to receive this information for credit. I apologize if I missed one, but if you do not receive this information about how you can take this class for credit, please make sure you email Jolie or Making STEM Connections at sciowa.org, and we will get that information to you. But I am trying to write these down as quickly as possible.
Yes, if you email the Making STEM Connections at sciowa.org, that's where Patrick and I and Renee, we all get those emails so we can answer you. You're also welcome to always email me directly, and I'm sure many of you have been getting emails from me. Obviously, you got the multiple emails about the different addresses for this webinar today, but you're always welcome to send that to me, and then I can connect you with the information. It's really important that you understand too that the AEA credit that is available for this goes through the AEA in the area in which you took the class. That may be different than the AEA that you normally work with. So if you came to Des Moines to take the training, then your credit will come through Heartland AEA, and they will have a class for you to sign up through in order to do that. There is graduate credit available. That graduate credit is through Drake University, and there are fees for both of the licensure options, and all of those fees are handled through the AEA. They don't come to us at the Science Center. The AEA will help you. So you potentially received information at your training about this, but if you did not, then please feel free to connect with me, and I can pass that information on in order for you to get signed up for the course. So in order to complete the course, you had to attend the full training, the PD session, and then we have to have at least 7.35 or 7.75 hours of webinar time together in order to meet the 15 hours of face-to-face time. Okay, so as we go through these, that's how we are able to keep track and prove that we are meeting the requirements of the AEAs and Drake University in order to receive the credit. You may have to, if you're just now interested in signing up, you may have to contact the AEA themselves because they may have closed the date for that training because it is past. But this course is only available to people taking or receiving the Making STEM Connection program through the Iowa Governor's STEM Advisory Council. So if it says that it's closed, then I would advise for you to connect with the AEA staff themselves and see if they can help you through it. It's not open to the public, so you can't have another person from your school or friend take that unless they were part of the original award and attended the original professional development session. I see some people looking suggestions about places to look for training with the robotics. Both the Hummingbird set and the Cubelets, their websites have excellent tutorials. The Cubelets are made by a company called Modular Robotics, and they have excellent tutorials on their website, and you are welcome to connect with them. Jen Titus is the person that I work with there, and she is their kind of education focused person. And so if you have specific questions, I'm happy to connect her with you. But they have curricular resources on their website as well for modular robotics. You can also just look up Cubelets on the internet and you will see the connection to that. The Hummingbird kits come to us from a company called Bird Brain Technologies, and they too have excellent tutorials on how to utilize the Hummingbird kit. Also, when you go to that site, you will see the connections for how to, the programs that you need to download to your computer in order to utilize the Hummingbird set. I had a teacher at one of the trainings who ran into some difficulties using his Chromebook and the system that Hummingbird has set up because it requires JavaScript. And he connected with them during our training, and they responded during the training and gave him the information that he needed in order to kind of bypass that need. So they have excellent tutorials, and the person, if you're interested in connecting with the educational person from Bird Brain Technology, send me an email and I will give you the link to her. Her name is Sarah, and she can help you walk you through anything as well. Okay, any last questions before we close out for today? Any last concerns?
And just to reiterate, safety, as much as we ask you to reiterate safety throughout each lesson and each time you open up your makerspace, whether it's through an open making activity or one where it's curriculum focused, we will be continually going back and forth towards or back to safety throughout these webinars as well. So we're going to be reinforcing safety just as much as we're asking you to reinforce safety.
Okay, if there are no other last minute questions or concerns, then we will go ahead and adjourn. I apologize again for the technical difficulties we had at the beginning. I'm so glad that we finally made the connection and got it to all work out, and we'll have better communication about that before our next webinar in November, which again will be about Makerspaces. And feel free always to email me and contact me about questions or concerns that you have. I know that some of you are talking about still needing your materials, and as I said, the last of the boxes, the large boxes of materials went out today, and the smaller boxes with the backfilled items are also leaving us this week, and so you should be getting the rest of those if you were missing any of those items, so that you'll have the complete set of materials for your kit. Somebody is asking about the last webinar. The official closure date for the course is March 1st. So I need time, obviously, to go through and assess all of your assignments. So as we get closer and closer to those dates, then I will give you a hard date for when those assignments are due. Again, the webinars are really designed to help you to complete your lesson planning. They're not necessarily required for the assignment itself. They're required for the course, but they're not necessarily required for the assignment itself. So again, the assignments will not be due until the beginning of next year. So you have some time to work on those, but maybe you can be planning. And if you're ready and gung-ho and you've got them all done, you are always welcome to send them to me when you get those completed. And I will respond to you to let you know that I got those, but I don't turn in the grades, official grades, until March 1st.
There was a question about, will there be a transcript of the chat to go along with the recording?
I'm not sure. I will ask Heartland about a transcript of the chat to see how that works. I know they're recording this, and then I will see and connect you with that information as soon as I find that out. Okay. I think we're good, everyone. Again, thank you again for your patience tonight, and I hope you learned some new things, some clarification. And when we have our next webinar in November, if you have questions ahead of time, things that you know that you're going to want us to address, if you're concerned about something specific with the kit or in designing your makerspace, you can send that to us ahead of time, and then we can have an answer prepared for you, or even some resources before we start the webinar. Go Cubs. Oh yeah, there's a game on tonight, isn't there? All right, so we're gonna let you all go. Thank you again for your time.
Make sure you